What clients do I avoid working with as a psychologist? After 2 years of working with a diverse range of people, there are definitely client groups that I steer away from, and also client groups that I find really fascinating and enjoy working with. And it's not to say that there are good and bad clients, it's just that as psychologists, we tend to have our preferences. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the client groups I try and steer away from, and also the groups that I find fascinating to work with, and the areas of psychology that I aspire to get into down the track as I continue with my career. Also, I have just started my own public Instagram, so it would mean the world to me if you could come and check out this space. I regularly post things that are going on behind the scenes in my job. It's the best place to come and interact with me if you have questions, if you're a psych student and you want to know more about psychology. This is the space to do it. Find me on my public Instagram. It's called kathleen.ann.psychologist. I hope I will see you there. And with all of that said, let's dive into this video. Okay, first up, I avoid working with teenagers, and it makes me feel kind of sad that I do, because I feel like I'm at the stage in my life where I have become the person that my teenage self just would have loved to have had around, because it's a really tough time. So I have a lot of empathy for teenagers, but the main reason that I tend to avoid this client group is because self-harm seems to come up a lot more with teenagers. Something that I have had to work on as a therapist is getting better at detaching myself when clients tell me something quite traumatic or something quite painful. Initially, I used to vividly imagine it happening to myself in pictures, and sometimes this is a really useful tool for empathizing with people, but when it comes to things like self-harm or pain, when I'm vividly kind of imagining this, it's not helpful. So I've had to learn how to imagine things in words, and I've done a lot of work on this with my supervisor. I'm a lot better at managing it now, but it's still an area that I kind of steer away from. Maybe that will change one day. I'd kind of like to think that in the future it could be a group I'd be a bit more open to, but just right now, that's one of the main things I kind of avoid. There's a couple of other reasons too, and they are that basically I just don't feel cool enough to work with teenagers. I don't know why, I don't. And I also find that with teenagers, I feel like I have to do a bit more work in getting them to open up and talk about what they're going through and share their inner world with me. I think it's a little bit trickier with this age group, you know, and maybe it's kind of because I haven't actually had a lot of experience working with teenagers, so a lot of this information is coming secondhand from talking to my colleagues, but yeah, it's still a group that I kind of steer away from because of these reasons. Okay, so next up, I tend to steer away from working with clients that have more hostile, sort of aggressive tendencies. And I kind of found this hard to define because it's not necessarily a client group. It's more like an aspect of one's personality or one's behavior. So it's not necessarily a group per se, it's more like a trait. And I try and avoid it because I find that when people are quite hostile or sort of aggressive towards me in a therapeutic space, I find it harder to show that warmth and that unconditional positive regard. And I think that's part of my psychology identity. When I go into the therapy space, that's what I really want to try and embody. I want the client to have that soothing kind of warm experience talking to me. So personally, I don't feel like I'm the best fit for this client group. And it's one of the reasons why I've steered away from working in prison systems where you're more likely to find people like this. Although I do find prisons fascinating. Like, I find the dynamics in there really interesting, but I'm not sure if I am the best person suited to that work. This might surprise you, but I do actively avoid working with children. I do, however, love working with little people. They bring me a lot of joy. For the first half of my 20s, I worked at a daycare center. I worked with kids on the spectrum. I also worked at a school. I learned so much from this client group. With young people, I admire their curiosity. I love that there is so much that you can analyze and try and pull apart and dissect about a young person's psyche. I love that they teach you so much about the world. I love that they have a lot of energy, and they're just extremely interesting people to work with. However, I steer away from it, and here's why. Children take up a lot of energy, more energy than I think I have to give in this role. The other thing to consider with children too is that you're not just working with the child, it's often the parents as well. And this can add another level of complexity that at this point in my career, I just don't want to get into just yet. Finally, and this is me kind of zooming out, thinking really big picture, I am not sure if I want kids. However, I think if I do have kids down the track, I don't think I'd want to be spending all my time with children, even though I love kids, but I think I'd really want to balance balance that with working with adults as well, because I really like that buzz of sort of grown-up conversation. I'd want to balance that, and if my whole career was like kids and I was a mom with kids, I just think it would just get a bit too much for me. So another reason why I've kind of steered away a bit from children. Okay, so those are all the client groups I'm sort of actively avoiding at this point in my career, and I'm not sure if I ever will get into it or not. I don't know. However, in terms of clients that I really enjoy working with, honestly, it varies a lot. I'm the kind of person that likes to go broad and diversify, and I struggle a little bit with niching down. I haven't yet found my thing in psychology. My mom, clinical psychologist, has advised me and said, look, you know, one day it's just going to come to you and you're going to find that. So that's what I'm trusting at the moment. And there are a few key groups that I'm currently really enjoying working with. It has changed throughout my internship, but at the moment, these are like the three areas that I'm finding really satisfying doing therapy work with. First up, ADHD. I honestly just didn't anticipate that I would have a strong interest in working with this client group. The main reason that I thought I wouldn't be the best fit for helping people on the spectrum is because I'm neurotypical, and I don't know what it's like in some ways. In some ways I kind of can see, and I think my background in autism, you know, that's really helped, and I do thrive in working with clients on the spectrum with autism. However, I've done so much work with that. ADHD is like this new area, and there's some differences for people that have ADHD. I was kind of nervous because I just really found it hard to understand how their brain operated, and it's a spectrum, you know, no person's going to be the same either. My deep dive into trying to understand just took me in a really fascinating space, because trying to really learn what it's like for people with ADHD and how they see things, and their strengths as well, like their ability to hyper focus on something, I just find that really interesting. And something that helped me get into this area was finding this YouTuber who has an ADHD channel. It's called something like How to ADHD. She's really cool, and doing a deep dive into her videos was something that actually helped a lot with my work with clients on the spectrum. One of the underlying reasons that I probably enjoy working with people who have ADHD is because I love organization. Like, I really love creating systems, creating more efficient ways of doing things. I find this like so fascinating, and it's something I'm always experimenting in my own personal life and trying to research and understand. So applying this to people who are neurodiverse, particularly with people who have ADHD and sort of struggle a bit more in this area, I really I geek out on it. Like, it's really cool to help them in this way. You know, other things too, like typically things like emotion regulation, again, something I love to teach and work on with people. So things that I find drawn to talking about often come up with my ADHD clients. So that's pretty cool. The other thing too, and I might be generalizing a little bit here, but I tend to find that clients on the spectrum, so ADHD, ASD as well, they tend to be quite genuine and quite sincere, and they really want to work on the things that they're finding hard. And it's just that they face really significant barriers that make their lives very difficult, and it's not often talked about or appreciated by neurotypicals, by society. I know I'm generalizing, and I know we've come a long way, but I still think there's more work to be done to recognize neuro extraordinaire's strengths. Part of this too is conversations with my siblings, because one has ASD, one has ADHD. So really trying to understand the way they see the world and the challenges they've gone through has also given me that extra layer of empathy and insight and reason to sort of be a bit of an advocate in this space and talk about it more. Facilitate conversations with people who are neurotypical, who don't get it, so that they can start to appreciate it, and also help people who are on the spectrum manage the things that they find difficult and also embrace their strengths and really appreciate their unique coolness that they bring to the world. I could talk a lot more about this topic. It's probably a whole other video. Yeah, ADHD, I wasn't expecting it, and it's an area I really enjoy working in with clients. I love helping people who have anxiety. It's probably like one of the areas I find the most interesting. But I don't want to play favorites. There's so many things I find interesting. But anxiety is like one of those areas that I could probably niche down in anxiety if I wanted to. There's a few reasons for this. The first is that I can really relate to it. I used to have social anxiety disorder as a kid growing up. I also struggled with panic attacks. So on one layer, I have a real sense of what it's like and what it feels like, at least a specific type of anxiety. And I also know that I was able to get through it, and I was able to cross the bridge to the other side. So I guess there's a lot of sense of empowerment that comes with going on that journey, and you can see in your clients that this is something that they can hopefully get through. The other reason that I find this client group really interesting is that one of my lecturers during university told us that anxiety is one of the easiest things to treat. And in my own work, the last 2 years, I have noticed that to be true. I've had so much success for clients that struggle with just anxiety. I've seen a lot of progress they've made. It is something that seems to be the most manageable to treat. There seems to be a lot of hope with this problem. And that's so rewarding to see as a therapist. It's so rewarding to see someone feel like their life is coming together in a more positive way and they're getting to where they want to be. That's a really nice journey to go on with someone. So yeah, that's another reason why I just find it very rewarding. And the final reason that it's probably an area I could see myself really honing in on is because it's so diverse. There's lots of different types of anxiety, all of which come with their own thing that I find interesting. And yeah, anxiety, it's like, it's something I feel for a lot. Final area that I'm finding fascinating at the moment is trauma. Also, it's deeply sad. I've seen how debilitating it can be, but I'm finding it very interesting to learn how it operates and how it works. And I personally believe that all clinicians should develop a good understanding of how trauma works. And I think they do. Like, it's not an area you can really avoid. A lot of people experience trauma. It's on a spectrum. Some people experience really complex, severe trauma, but some people still experience trauma in a lighter way, I suppose. So I think it's important to have a really good sense of how it works. And I think, as a young clinician still in training, clients that have been through more complex, severe forms of trauma, I refer them to specialists, to people that can do the important work with them, because I acknowledge that as someone who is still learning, you can do more harm than good trying to delve into someone's trauma story. I think it needs to be done in a really contained, safe way by someone who's very skilled. Before we wrap this video up, let me just quickly share my final thoughts on where I want to go with the future of my career. It's still a work in progress. There's so many areas of psychology I find fascinating. I love personality, I love social psychology, I really love positive psychology. And doing my job, I've come to learn that I love clinical psychology, which my mom is very excited about. So I don't quite know where I'm going to go to next, but I know that I want to do a couple of things with my career. I'm just working out how that could look. And the other thing too that I've come to realize is that I would like to specialize working with different populations. At the moment, I'm currently working with a population of people who are unemployed looking for work. And that is why my job is so diverse, which is amazing. And I really, really love that. There's other areas that I'd like to try out too, like maybe the military, potentially working in hospices, maybe way down the track, way down the track, potentially schools, I'm not too sure yet. And also more corporate environments like organizations and companies. I have no idea where I could go. And that is the really cool thing about this field of work. Your career can take you into so many different spaces. So who knows what my future will hold, but I really hope that this video gave you some insight and helped you think about your own career and what you want to do with psychology if you're studying, or if you just wanted to learn about behind the scenes of a psychologist's life and what it looks like. I hope it gave you some insight. Please come and check out my Instagram. I'd love to also connect with you there, so come and check it out. If you want to ask me more questions, go to that space. Really happy to help psychology students. Also, if you enjoyed this video, you're probably going to like my other video about expectations versus the reality of working as a psychologist. It was such a pleasure to make this one. I really enjoyed it. I look forward to seeing you again. Take good care of yourself. Okay, bye!